It was broad daylight on a busy street. The sun was high. Shops were open. People were walking past without concern. Steven Seagal stood near the sidewalk, calm and quiet. Dressed simply. No security. No attention. Just another man in the crowd. That is when it happened. A group of bullies noticed him. They slowed down, looked him up and down, then started laughing. One of them stepped closer. Another circled behind. Their voices grew louder. Their confidence grew stronger. "Look at this guy. Easy target. Old and weak." They mocked him openly. Right there in front of everyone. One bully bumped into him on purpose. Another pushed his shoulder. A third laughed and clapped. People nearby stopped walking. Some stared. Some pretended not to see. A few raised their phones. Steven did not react. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He stood still, eyes calm, face unreadable. That made them angrier. They pushed him again. Harder this time. Testing him. Waiting for fear. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought calm meant surrender. They were wrong. Very wrong. The noise of the street slowly faded. As more people noticed what was happening, a small crowd formed. Curiosity turned into tension. Everyone expected the same ending. The old man would fall. The bullies would laugh. Life would move on. But something felt different. Steven took a slow breath. He looked at them one by one. Not with anger. Not with fear. With certainty. In that moment, the air changed. The laughter stopped. Even the bullies felt it. They had crossed a line. Without knowing whose line it was. What they saw as a joke was about to become a lesson. A lesson no one there would forget. Because in the next few seconds, the man they thought was weak would show them a truth. Real power does not announce itself. It waits. And what happened next shocked everyone. Watching the street was alive under the afternoon sun. Shadows fell sharply on the pavement. Traffic moved steadily. Horns sounded in the distance. Vendors called out to passing customers. It was the kind of ordinary day people forget. Nothing dramatic. Nothing unusual. Just another moment in the middle of a busy city. Steven Seagal walked alone. No rush. No distraction. His steps were slow and steady. He wore simple clothes. Faded jeans. A plain jacket. Nothing expensive. Nothing attention-grabbing. To most people, he looked invisible. He was not checking his phone. He was not looking around. He moved with quiet awareness, as if the noise did not touch him. Across the street, a group of young men stood together, laughing loudly, blocking part of the sidewalk. They were full of energy, full of noise, full of confidence. They shoved each other, joked aggressively, enjoyed being seen. They noticed Steven. At first just a glance, then longer looks. One of them smirked. Another nudged his friend. They whispered something, then laughed. Steven kept walking, calm, focused, unbothered. That only encouraged them. They stepped into his path, not fully blocking him, just enough to test him. One said something under his breath. Another laughed louder, trying to draw attention. Steven stopped, not because he was afraid, but because he chose to. People nearby slowed down. A woman paused near a shop window. A man leaned against a pole. Someone across the street raised a phone. The bullies liked the attention. They thrived on it. One of them stepped closer. Too close. "You lost, old man." His voice was sharp, mocking. Steven looked at him calmly. No reaction. No change in expression. That silence annoyed them. Another bully stepped forward, poking Steven in the chest. Light at first. Testing. Steven did not move. The group laughed again. Louder now. They mistook discipline for weakness. Control for fear. In their minds, they had already won. Steven glanced around. Not at the crowd, but at the space, the street, the ground, the distance. Everything was measured. Everything was noted. To the bullies, it looked like hesitation. To Steven, it was preparation. The sun reflected off nearby windows. A breeze moved through the street. Dust shifted under passing feet. Time felt slower. People sensed something coming. But no one spoke. The bullies grew bolder. One shoved Steven harder. Enough to make a point. Steven took one step back. Balanced. Stable. The leader laughed. Proud of himself. "You see that?" he said to his friends. They circled slightly. Not fully surrounding, but close. Steven spoke for the first time. His voice was low. Controlled. "Move away." No threat. No anger. Just a statement. They burst out laughing. To them, it sounded ridiculous. They had no idea. They were standing in front of decades of discipline. Years of combat. A man who mastered silence. The crowd watched. Waiting. Some expected violence. Others expected Steven to walk away. No one expected what was coming before this goes further. Comment below where you are watching from. And tell me, should someone stay calm or fight back in moments like this? The bullies thought the moment belonged to them. They were about to learn. It never did. The tension thickened in the air. What started as laughter now felt dangerous. The bullies stopped joking. Their smiles faded. Their tone changed. One of them stepped closer again. This time with intent. His hand grabbed Steven by the jacket. "You think you can tell us what to do?" The crowd gasped softly. A few people stepped back. Others leaned in. Steven did not pull away. He did not resist. He simply stood there. That calm unsettled them. Another bully shoved him from the side. Harder than before. Trying to force a reaction. Steven shifted his weight. His feet stayed planted. He did not stumble. That surprised them. The leader frowned. Embarrassed now. Anger replaced confidence. "You think you are tough?" he shouted. He pushed Steven again. This time with both hands. The street went quiet. Even the traffic noise felt distant. Steven lifted his eyes. Locked onto the leader. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. With warning. "Last chance," he said quietly. The bullies froze for half a second. Then laughed again. But it sounded forced. Fear had entered the space. They just did not admit it. One of them swung his arm. Not a clean punch. More like a wild strike. Steven tilted his head slightly. The fist missed by inches. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Before anyone could understand what happened, Steven stepped forward. Not rushing. Not panicking. One smooth movement. He caught the attacker's wrist. Twisted gently. Then sharply. The man cried out. Dropped to his knees. The sound echoed. The others stepped back instinctively. Shock flashed across their faces. Steven released him immediately. Stepped back. Hands open. He did not chase. He did not threaten. That control scared them more than violence. The leader shouted, "Get him!" Two moved forward together, trying to overwhelm him. Steven turned slightly, positioned himself. The ground beneath his feet solid. The first attacker lunged. Steven sidestepped, redirected the force. The man fell hard. The second froze. The crowd erupted. Some shouted. Some covered their mouths. Phones were fully raised now. Steven stood between them, breathing steady, eyes focused. He was not angry. He was precise. The bullies hesitated. Their confidence was gone. What they expected to be easy had become terrifying. They backed away slowly, but pride held them in place. The leader clenched his fists, torn between fear and ego. "You think you won?" he yelled. Steven did not respond. That silence felt heavy, judging. The leader rushed forward, desperate, reckless. In one swift motion, Steven stepped aside, guided him forward. The leader stumbled, lost balance, hit the ground hard. The sound was sharp, final. The street went completely silent. No cheers, no laughter, only shock. Steven stood still, looking down briefly, then away. The bullies scrambled back, dragging each other, humiliated, broken. They did not say another word. Steven adjusted his jacket, checked the space around him, then relaxed. The crowd stared, trying to process what they had just seen. This was not rage. This was discipline. Not brutality, but control. The bullies had attacked, and instantly regretted who they messed with. But the story was not over, because someone in the crowd had just realized something important, and the truth was about to spread fast. The silence after the struggle felt unreal, as if the street itself had stopped breathing. People stood frozen, phones still raised, mouths slightly open. No one spoke. The bullies lay scattered on the pavement, groaning, holding their arms, trying to understand how everything collapsed so fast. Steven Seagal stood a few steps away, calm, unshaken, as if the chaos never touched him. He did not raise his fists. He did not posture. He simply adjusted his jacket and took a slow breath. That calm changed everything. The crowd expected shouting, police sirens, more violence. Instead, there was control. One bully tried to stand. He winced and fell back. Panic replaced anger. Another crawled toward the curb, eyes wide, avoiding Steven's gaze. People began whispering. That was unreal. Did you see how fast that was? He barely touched them. A man near the back shook his head. No normal guy moves like that. The energy shifted, from shock to curiosity. Someone in the crowd leaned closer, studying Steven's face. He squinted, then whispered to the person next to him. Wait. A woman beside him turned, confused. That looks like Steven Seagal. The name moved quietly at first, passed from one person to another, like a spark. Phones zoomed in. People searched with their eyes. The bullies heard it too. One of them looked up, fear deepening. Who did she say? Another shook his head. No way. But doubt had already turned into dread. Steven took a step back, giving space, not interested in attention. But attention had found him. The crowd grew thicker. People from nearby shops stepped out. Drivers slowed down. Someone spoke louder this time. That is Steven Seagal. The name landed hard. Whispers turned into murmurs. Murmurs into gasps. A few people nodded. Recognition clear. The bullies froze. Their faces drained of color. They had not attacked a random man. They had attacked a trained martial artist. A legend. Reality hit them all at once. The leader pushed himself up slightly. Pain visible. Fear worse. His voice cracked. Is that true? No one answered him. They did not need to. Steven looked away. Already done. That made it worse. He did not care who they were, or what they thought. The humiliation sank deep. One of the bullies covered his face. Another whispered, "We messed up." The crowd did not laugh. There was no celebration, only realization. People had witnessed discipline, not ego. Steven finally spoke again. Soft, measured. Go. No threat. No insult. Just permission. The bullies did not argue. They struggled to their feet, helped each other, limped away. No one stopped them. The crowd parted, letting them pass. Their heads were down, eyes fixed on the ground. Steven watched briefly, then turned away. As he stepped toward the sidewalk, applause started. Not loud, not wild, respectful. Steven did not acknowledge it. He did not smile. He continued walking, calm, grounded. The crowd slowly relaxed. Conversations broke out. Excited, amazed. People replayed the moment. explaining what they saw, what they felt. Some shook their heads in disbelief. He warned them. He stayed calm the whole time. A man lowered his phone, looking thoughtful. That was not about fighting. That was about control. Steven walked into the sunlight, blending back into the city. But the street was changed. Everyone there understood something new. Strength does not shout. It waits. And when tested, it answers once. The moment was over. But the lesson was just beginning. The street did not return to normal. Not yet. People stayed where they were, still processing, still replaying what they had seen. Steven had only walked a few steps, but the attention followed him. Phones stayed raised. Hands trembled slightly. Voices stayed low. Then one man stepped forward, middle-aged, careful, certain. He looked directly at Steven, then spoke clearly. "That is Steven Seagal." The words landed heavy. For a second, no one reacted. Then everything changed. Murmurs spread fast. Faces shifted. Eyes widened. Some nodded immediately. Others looked confused, then shocked. A woman gasped, "Oh my God, it is him!" Another person pulled out their phone, typing fast, comparing faces. "It is really him. I recognize him." The crowd grew louder, not chaotic, but electric. The name carried weight. Steven Seagal, actor, martial artist, a man known for control. The bullies heard it clearly now. One of them froze mid-step. Pain forgotten. Fear replaced it. His eyes widened. Color drained from his face. "No," he whispered. The leader stopped completely. His breathing shallow. Mind racing. They looked back. At Steven, standing calmly, unbothered. Reality hit hard. They had not attacked a stranger. They had attacked a man trained for combat. A man who lived discipline. The humiliation burned deeper than the pain. One bully shook his head, voice breaking. "We did not know." Steven did not turn around. That silence spoke louder than anger. People stepped closer. Respect visible. Some lowered their phones. Others stopped recording, as if suddenly aware. This was not entertainment. This was a moment. A man near the front spoke quietly. "That explains everything." Another added. "He warned them." Heads nodded. The story shifted. From violence to lesson. The bullies stood there, unsure, broken. They wanted to disappear. One tried to speak. Apologize. Explain. Steven raised one hand. Not aggressively. Just enough. Silence returned. He spoke calmly, evenly. "It does not matter who I am." People leaned in, listening. "It matters how you treat people." The words cut deeper than any strike. The bullies dropped their eyes. They finally understood. This was never about strength. It was about respect. Steven took another step forward. The crowd instinctively moved aside. No one blocked his path. No one questioned him. The street opened for him. That is when people truly felt it. Authority without force. Power without noise. Steven Seagal did not need to say his name. Others did it for him. And that made it heavier. Now be honest. If you were there, would you have stepped in or stayed silent? Comment below and tell the truth. The bullies limped away, each step slower than the last. They did not look back. They could not. Steven continued walking, blending into the daylight, as if nothing happened. But the people stayed, talking, reflecting. They would tell this story again and again, not because of the fight, but because of the moment. They learned something. Never judge strength by appearance. Never mistake calm for weakness. And never forget, the person you mock might be the one who teaches you the hardest lesson of your life. The bullies disappeared into the distance, their footsteps uneven, their heads low. No one chased them. No one shouted after them. The street slowly began to breathe again. People looked at each other. Still stunned. Still quiet. Steven Seagal stood near the edge of the sidewalk. The noise of the city returning around him. Cars passed. A horn sounded. A vendor called out. Life resumed. But something had changed. Steven checked the space one last time. Not to intimidate, but to ensure it was over. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. He took a deep breath, then turned to leave. A man nearby spoke softly. "Thank you." Steven paused, turned slightly. The man continued. "They would have hurt someone else." Steven nodded once. Nothing more. That single gesture carried weight. Others in the crowd noticed. A few nodded as well. Not cheering. Not clapping. Acknowledging. The crowd slowly broke apart. People returned to their routines. But they walked differently. More aware. More thoughtful. Some replayed the moment in their minds. Others questioned themselves. Would I have stepped in? Would I have stayed silent? Steven walked down the street, blending into the sunlight. To strangers, he looked like any other man. Quiet, unremarkable. But those who saw the truth would never forget. The place where the bullies stood now felt empty, not because they left, but because their arrogance had been stripped away. A woman near a shop shook her head. That was not violence. That was control. Her friend nodded. Discipline. Steven stopped at a corner, waiting for the light. He stood patiently, hands relaxed, breathing steady. No sign of tension. That was the real lesson. Not the speed, not the technique, but restraint. The ability to stop when you could continue. The crowd had seen many fights before. Shouting, rage, chaos. This was different. Steven crossed the street, moving with the flow. Someone behind whispered, "He could have done more." Another replied, "That is why he did not." The bullies would remember this day, not because of pain, but because of shame, because they learned. Power does not need to humiliate. It only corrects. Steven disappeared into the crowd. Just another figure in the daylight. But the street remembered. People would pass that spot and recall what happened. How arrogance fell. How calm prevailed. No police report. No headlines. Just a quiet resolution. The city continued, unchanged on the surface. But for those who watched, something settled inside. A reminder. Not every victory needs noise. Not every strength needs display. Some lessons are delivered once, clearly, and then the world moves on. Long after the street returned to normal, the lesson remained. People walked past that place every day, unaware of what had happened there, unaware of the shift that took place. But for those who witnessed it, the memory stayed clear. It was not the fight they remembered most. It was the restraint. Strength without anger. Power without pride. In a world where loud voices demand attention, true strength moved in silence. The bullies believed dominance meant noise. Shouting, mocking, pushing. They believed fear came from aggression. They were wrong. Real strength does not seek attention. It waits. It watches. And when forced to respond, it ends things cleanly. Steven Seagal did not teach a lesson with words. He taught it with behavior. He warned them. He gave space. He chose calm. Only when there was no other choice did he act. And when it was over, he stopped. That is the difference between ego and discipline. Anyone can throw a punch. Few can hold back. Respect is not demanded. It is earned. And humility is not weakness. It is control. The people who watched learned something important. Not about fighting, but about life. You never know who someone is, or what they carry, or what they are capable of, judging by appearance, by age, by silence, is how mistakes are made. The bullies thought they had power. Because they were loud. Because they were many. But power is not volume. It is presence. And presence does not need to announce itself. Steven walked away without pride. Without recognition. That was the final lesson. Strength that seeks applause is not strength. Strength that protects without showing off is real. Type respect if you believe real strength stays calm. And comment where you are watching from. I want to acknowledge every person who values humility. The world moves fast, and kindness often goes unnoticed. But moments like this remind us, character is revealed when no one expects it. Stay calm, stay aware, stay respectful, because one day, the person you underestimate might be the one who teaches you the most powerful lesson of your life.